Hey everyone, we are going to the next religion, which is the Norse religion. Um, and this is super interesting stuff. It is also a cultural religion, and just like with Egypt, you had you have the situation um, where the culture that they live in is dictated by the weather that they have, right? This is a religion up in Scandinavia where people are having very, very difficult time just sustaining their own existence. And they lived in an inhospitable and harsh world, long, terrible winters. Death was always at their door. It was difficult to come up with food and resources. And so their religion was kind of like that. It was harsh, it was violent, right? And this religion provided a means for this harsh people to justify their warlike actions and provided a framework for the way that they interacted with one another. So as we move on here, I'm going to talk a little bit about the battle for Midgard, right? There's a constant struggle against Midgard from the savage forces of darkness and chaos, the frost giants who pelted the world with ice and snow, and Thor, we'll talk about a little later, the god of thunder and fertility. His hammer was often painted on barn doors to ward off evil spirits. And as they journeyed out, they learned how to wear these symbols around their necks, like the Christians wore their crosses. Inevitably, this is a religion that was very much based on the bards, and so there wasn't a lot written down, and all of it got passed on, and it eventually got overtaken and overrun by Christians, and Christians kind of took it and spun it and finally wrote it down, but they put it in their own terms. So there are a number of things that we don't have and that are integrated with Christian ideas, because to the victors go the spoils. So let's move on. All right, the Norse afterlife. If you died of sickness or old age, that's not good, right? It's a shadowy place. You go to the kingdom of hell, where the walls were a mass of writhing serpents, and the banquet hall, the knife was named hunger, and the plate starvation. Hell was originally the name of the world of the dead. It came to mean the goddess of death, and she was one of the children of Loki, and her kingdom was said to lie downward and northward. The honor to a person was held by succeeding generations would be how they would be remembered and immortalized with the songs of the bards. Now, warriors who died in battle would be rescued by the maidens of Odin, the Valkyries, who took them to the halls of Valhalla to feast and engage in mock battle. So they were fighting even in heaven for fun. Now, you can't really study Norse mythology without understanding Ragnarok. This is the final battle where it's foretold that gods and evil forces would destroy each other. So, in the end, out of that destruction, a new world would rise along with two humans, Leif and Luthrasser. So, what you have here is, in some senses, this is where you see the Christians go ahead and taking all of the all of the richness of Norse mythology and just saying, well, it all is going to come to an end, and then you have this Adam and Eve figure, and they're going to take over, and Judeo-Christianity will take over, and that's really kind of what we're dealing with here. Is this they used it? The Christians used it to their advantage. Now, and after this, after Ragnarok, you wouldn't worship the old gods because they're all dead, right? But the one God who dwells in Gimli, Lord of the Rings uh, aficionados would know what that is, or that character. And this is a paradise. This is kind of a blending of that Viking and Christian myth. So the Vikings had lots of influence. Um, Now, the creation story, if we go back to the beginning, originally there was silence and darkness, elemental fire, and the fire and the ice got closer and closer, and it formed this giant Ymir who could create other giants from his sweat. Melting ice formed a cow, which fed the giants, and the cow fed off the ice to reveal a god Buri, whose grandchildren Odin, Vili, and Ve killed Ymir, and they used to form the world, using his blood as the ocean and skin for the soil, and other parts of the world were made from his parts. Um, there's the nine worlds, right? The universe is divided into nine worlds: Asgard, the realm of the gods and goddesses; Midgard, the home of the humans; and then through these nine worlds runs the world tree. And there's a whole bunch of different kinds of little creatures and different symbols that are all there, um, in regards to the world and the universe. And they're all there for you to kind of look at and read if you want to pause it. Okay, so now we're going to deal with Odin, right? So Odin is the chief divinity of the Norse pantheon, and he is the god of war and death. He's also the god of poetry and wisdom. So apparently he hung for 9 days, pierced by his own spear on the world tree, and here he learned the nine powerful songs in the 18 runes. And Odin can make the dead speak, and his attributes are his spear, which never misses, his ring, which every ninth night creates 8 new rings. Again, Lord of the Rings, hello. And he has he's accompanied by his wolves, to whom that he gives all his food, because he himself consumes nothing but wine. So college kids should understand that. Um, Odin has only one eye, which blazes like the sun. He gave up the other eye for a drink from the well of wisdom. He gained immense knowledge. On the final battle of Ragnarok, Odin will be killed by the wolf Fenrir, who we'll talk about in a second. And Wednesday is actually named after him, Woden's Day. And that's really cool. Now Thor. Okay, Thor's the Norse god of thunder. He's the son of Odin and one of the most powerful gods. Um, Thor is usually portrayed as this large, powerful man with red beard and eyes of lightning. Despite his ferocious appearance, he's very popular. He's a protector god against all of evil. He surpasses his father in popularity because he doesn't require human sacrifices that Odin did. The Norse believes that during a thunderstorm, Thor rides through the heavens on his chariot and pulled by goats. I thought he could maybe get a better ride than that. Um, his greatest enemy is the Midgard serpent, and at the day of Ragnarok, Thor will kill the serpent but will die from its poison, and his sons will inherit his hammer. Thursday is named after him, Thor's Day, so that's cool too. All right, Fenrir. Woo. All right, he's this gigantic and terrible monster in the shape of a wolf. And to make a long story short, the gods are all afraid of him. They eventually um, have to trick him into being trapped. I want to kind of go to the next slide here. And what happens is that he breaks all their chains until they decide, well, they've got to use a magic chain. And they order the dwarves to make something so strong. I love this, the soft, thin ribbon. And it's incredibly strong, and it's made with 6 strange elements: the footstep of a cat, the roots of a mountain, a woman's beard, because a woman's beard, the breath of fishes, sinews of a bear, and a bird's spittle. I think it's cool. So they trick him, they wrap him up. He can't break out, and he is buried down in the ground, and they're all happy. Um, and they eventually, what ends up happening is um, on the day of Ragnarok, Fenrir will break from his chains and join the giants against the battle against the gods. And he'll seek out Odin and devour him, and one of Odin's sons will come and kill the wolf. Um, so let's see. And well, we've got to get to Loki. Loki is one of the major deities in the Norse pantheon. Of course, he's considered one of the gods, but occasionally he's their enemy. He's connected with fire and magic, and he can assume many forms. He's crafty, malicious. He's also heroic sometimes, right? But he's kind of grows progressively more unpleasant as the stories go on. He's directly responsible for the god of light, Balder, and um, Loki has a mistress, right? This giantess, and he's the father of different monsters. His wife stays loyal to him. Okay, and we'll get to the next part next.